This August, Alex Eala is walking back into New York with something she has never had before. The spotlight is already waiting for her. Before the U.S. Open main draw even begins, Eala is scheduled to step inside Arthur Ashe Stadium as one of the young names featured at Stars of the Open. Arthur Ashe, the biggest stage at the U.S. Open. A stadium connected to champions, legends, pressure, and some of the most unforgettable nights in tennis. And now Alex Eala is being placed directly inside that spotlight. But here is what makes this story interesting. This is not a U.S. Open final. It is not even a main draw match. Stars of the Open is part of Fan Week. So why does this moment feel important? Why is the U.S. Open putting Eala in front of fans before the serious competition even begins? And how did a player who once had to fight simply to be noticed become one of the young names New York already wants people watching? To understand that, you have to rewind. Back to 2022. Alex Eala arrived in New York as a junior with talent, ambition, and a dream that carried the hopes of Filipino tennis fans. Then she did something historic. She won the U.S. Open girls singles title. Eala became the first Filipino player to win a junior Grand Slam singles title. For the Philippines, the moment was enormous. For Eala, it looked like the beginning of something bigger. But professional tennis does not care much about what you did yesterday. A junior trophy can open a door. It cannot guarantee what happens after you walk through it. The professional tour is faster, stronger, more experienced, and far less forgiving. Suddenly, Eala was facing players who had spent years learning how to survive long matches, difficult conditions, hostile crowds, and the pressure of ranking points every single week. So after making history, she had to prove herself all over again. That is the part of the story people sometimes forget. The trophy did not give her automatic entry into every major tournament. It did not guarantee packed stadiums, it did not guarantee a WTA title, and it definitely did not guarantee that American tennis fans would remember her name. Progress came slowly. One good tournament could create hope. One early loss could bring back every question. Was Alex Eala simply an outstanding junior? Or could she actually become a serious professional player? By 2024, she was still fighting through U.S. Open qualifying. Think about the contrast. 2 years earlier, she had lifted a trophy in New York. Now she was battling simply to earn a place in the main draw. That is professional tennis. Nothing is carried forward for free. You have to prove yourself again and again. For Filipino fans, that made every step more emotional. They were not watching someone who had been handed a clear path toward the top. They were watching a young player trying to create tennis history for a country with very little history at this level of the sport. Every return to New York brought the same question. How far could she really go? Then came 2025. And suddenly, the answers started looking different. Eala returned to the U.S. Open ranked around number 75 inches the world. She was no longer just the junior champion from 3 years earlier. Now she was fighting inside the Grand Slam main draw. But the first round gave her no easy welcome. Across the net stood Clara Tauson, the number 14 seed. A dangerous opponent who had every reason to be considered the favorite. Eala was still the outsider. She still had to earn the attention. And the match eventually reached a point where almost everything seemed finished. 5-1 in the final set. Eala was almost gone. Not slightly behind, not searching for one small comeback. Almost gone. Then Tauson reached match point. Eala survived. Another match point came. She survived again. Then another. Still alive. 5 times, Tauson moved within 1 point of ending the match. 5 times, Eala refused to disappear. Think about what that does mentally. 1 match point is pressure. 2 starts becoming uncomfortable. 3 can make you wonder how many chances remain. 5 can make defeat feel inevitable. But every match point Eala saved changed the energy. The scoreboard was telling her the match was slipping away. Every point she survived was telling her something else. You are still here. Then the game started coming back. 5-1 suddenly became less comfortable. The pressure moved across the net. Tauson had been trying to finish. Now she had to stop Eala from coming all the way back. The match reached a deciding tie-break. At that point, the earlier score barely mattered. Everything came down to a handful of points. 10-10, 11-10, 11-11. Neither player could escape. Then Eala finally finished it. 13-11 in the deciding tie-break. 6-3, 2-6, 7-6. A comeback from 5-1 down. 5 match points saved. And for the first time, a Filipino player had won a Grand Slam singles main draw match. History again. But this time, history came with a warning. One incredible comeback can prove courage. It does not automatically prove consistency. One huge Grand Slam win can create headlines. It does not automatically make someone a permanent force on tour. The next round came, then the run ended. That is how quickly tennis can change the conversation. One day, everyone is talking about history. A few days later, the tournament keeps moving. But Eala had proven something important. She could survive. She could stay inside a match when almost everything was telling her to leave. And that ability would matter again. Because another important moment from that period revealed the opposite side of pressure. Eastbourne. Eala reached her first WTA final. 1 match from the trophy. Then she got even closer. 4 championship points. 4 chances to finish the tournament as the champion. 4 opportunities to turn a breakthrough week into a title. And everyone disappeared. Maya Joint survived them. Then Joint won the match. The contrast was brutal. At the US Open, Eala survived 5 match points and escaped. At Eastbourne, she held 4 championship points and could not finish. One match showed what happened when she had nothing left to lose. The other showed what happened when the trophy was close enough to touch. And that created a much bigger question. Could Alex Eala finish the biggest moments? Because tennis careers are filled with almost won the title, almost reached the next round, almost broke into the elite, almost became the player everyone expected. Eala had already shown she could beat important opponents. She had shown she could create dramatic moments. She had shown she could survive pressure. But there was still something missing. A WTA singles trophy. And the closer she moved toward the top, the more important that missing trophy became. Potential was no longer enough. At some point, almost has to become now. Eastbourne had shown Eala how painful that final step could be. The US Open had shown that she could survive when defeat looked almost certain. But neither answered the biggest question. What would happen when Alex Eala got another chance to finish something huge? Would the memory of Eastbourne come back? Would the pressure tighten her game? Would she hesitate when the trophy became real again? Or would those painful experiences finally become useful? The answer came in Washington. And this time, the path was anything but easy. First came Zheng Qinwen, then Leylah Fernandez, then Elina Svitolina, then Naomi Osaka. And waiting in the final was Jessica Pegula. Look at those names. These were not players who needed an introduction to major pressure. They knew big courts. They knew expectations. They knew what it felt like to enter important matches with people expecting them to win. And Eala kept beating them, one after another. The deeper the run became, the harder it was to call Washington another surprising week. Then came the final. Jessica Pegula took the opening set, 6-4. For Eala fans, the feeling was immediately uncomfortable. Another final. Another trophy sitting somewhere on the other side of the net. And another experienced opponent moving closer. Pegula went ahead 4-3 in the second set. Eala was trailing. The number 1 seed had control. And the old questions started coming back. Can Alex Eala actually finish? Then everything changed. Eala won the next game. Then another. Then another. The energy flipped. Pegula stopped controlling the direction of the match. Eala started taking control herself. The movement looked sharper. The rallies became more confident. The pressure moved across the net. And then something remarkable happened. Pegula could not stop the run. Eala won 9 straight games. She went from trailing 6-4, 4-3, to winning the second set 6-4 and taking the final set 6-love. 9 consecutive games. This was different from the U.S. Open comeback. That had been survival. Washington became control. At Eastbourne, Eala watched 4 championship points disappear. In Washington, once she found the opening, she never gave it back. That was the moment the story changed. Miami had shown that Eala could shock elite players. The U.S. Open had shown that she could survive when defeat was almost certain. Washington showed something different. She could finish. She could move through an entire week of difficult opponents, fall behind in the final, take control, and walk away with the trophy. Alex Eala became the first player from the Philippines to win a WTA singles title. Then came another milestone. Number 20 inches the world. For the first time, a Filipino player had entered the WTA top 20. And suddenly, the conversation around Eala had to change. She was no longer simply a young player who could produce one surprising upset. She was a champion. And the results were becoming difficult to dismiss. By that point in the 2026 season, Eala had collected 7 top 10 victories. 7. That number mattered because it showed that this was no longer one magical tournament or one perfect afternoon. A pattern was developing. Big opponent, big stage, big pressure. Eala kept finding ways through. And that is why what is happening in New York now feels so different. For years, Eala had to create the reason for people to watch. She had to win something, upset someone, save match points, make history, force the audience to look. Now the spotlight is beginning to arrive before the result. The U.S. Open announced Eala as one of the names involved in Stars of the Open. The event is scheduled for August 27 inside Arthur Ashe Stadium, and she is not entering New York with only one storyline. She is also part of the U.S. Open mixed doubles field with Felix Auger-Aliassime. The U.S. Open has featured her as a player to watch. Her name is appearing across different parts of the tournament conversation before the main draw even begins. Singles, mixed doubles, Fan Week, Arthur Ashe, official tournament coverage. That does not mean Alex Eala has suddenly become bigger than every established star in tennis. It does not mean she has reached the same level as Grand Slam champions who have dominated the sport for years. That would be an exaggeration. The interesting part is more specific. The U.S. Open is treating her like someone fans should already know. Someone worth watching before the first serious ball is struck. That is a major change. In 2022, Eala came to New York as a junior with a dream. In 2025, she returned as an outsider, trying to prove she belonged in the main draw. In 2026, she comes back as a WTA champion and a top 20 player. That is not the same player walking through the gates, and it is not the same kind of attention waiting for her. This is where the story becomes bigger than fame. Fame can happen quickly. One dramatic upset can make someone trend for a weekend. One emotional celebration can spread across social media. One great match can suddenly put millions of eyes on a player. But lasting visibility works differently. It grows through repetition, through familiarity, through people seeing your name again before the next big result even arrives. Eala is beginning to experience that transition. And American tennis can see something else around her that rankings alone cannot fully explain. Connection. When Eala plays, Philippine flags appear. Filipino fans arrive emotionally invested. Every important point can feel bigger because the story represents something larger than one player trying to move up a ranking list. For a young athlete, that kind of connection is powerful. It does not guarantee victories. It does not guarantee trophies. It does not guarantee that Eala becomes one of the biggest stars in global tennis. But it does guarantee something important. People care. And they care before the match even begins. That matters in New York. The US Open is built around competition, but it is also built around personalities, stories, noise, pressure, and unforgettable nights. Eala has already shown that her matches can produce those things. The junior title in 2022. The comeback against Tauson in 2025. 5 match points saved, the heartbreak at Eastbourne, 4 championship points lost. Then Washington, Cheng Chinven, Leylah Fernandez, Elina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, Jessica Pegula. 9 straight games to finish the final. First WTA singles title. World number 20. Every chapter answered a different question. Could she make history? Yes. Could she survive pressure? Yes. Could she beat elite players? Yes. Could she recover from painful losses? Yes. Could she finally finish? Washington gave the answer, yes. And once that answer arrived, the meaning of New York changed. Alex Eala no longer needs the first round of the US Open to introduce her. The introduction has already started. That may be the clearest sign of how far she has come. For years, she needed the racket to create the spotlight. Now the spotlight can arrive first. And that sounds like a reward, but it creates a completely new challenge. Attention changes everything. When nobody expects you to win, every big victory feels like a surprise. When people already know your name, the questions become harder. How far should you go? Can you perform when the stadium is waiting for something special? Can you handle expectations that arrive before the first serve? Can you keep growing when the story is no longer about discovery? That may become the most important test of the next stage of the Alex Eala story. Because the surprise factor is beginning to disappear. Opponents know her, fans know her, tournament organizers know her, and more people are arriving with expectations. That is the strange trade. Eala spent years trying to become visible. Now she has to learn how to perform while being visible, which brings everything back to Arthur Ashe. The stars of the Open appearance is not the destination. It is a signal that the way American tennis presents Alex Eala is changing. The junior champion, who once had to prove that her success could survive, professional tennis is now returning to New York with a WTA title, a top 20 ranking, and attention already attached to her name. But the real US Open has not started yet. That is what makes this moment so interesting. Arthur Ashe during Fan Week can introduce her to the crowd. It cannot win a Grand Slam match for her. A top 20 ranking can earn respect. It cannot protect her from pressure. A WTA trophy can prove that she knows how to finish. It cannot guarantee she will do it again. So the biggest question is no longer whether Alex Eala can reach the spotlight. She already has. The question is what she does once she is standing inside it. Can she turn growing attention into another historic US Open run? Can Arthur Ashe become more than a Fan Week moment? Can New York become the place where Alex Eala takes the next step from rising star to genuine Grand Slam threat? We are about to find out. Because the exhibition comes first. Then the lights change. The real matches begin, and suddenly every point counts.